Magellan,
Yes,
we just watched the first
Alan.
episode of Farscape.
We did.
What did you think? Well, we watched the first two, actually.
We did watch the first two. What did I think? I thought it was good.
It's weird because I have been really nervous about starting a new show because we just
Yeah,
finished Buffy over the winter break and we finished Angel 2 days ago. And we're in the dregs of Twin Peaks now. So this is a really weird
right.
time to be starting a new show, but I feel like we hit our mark.
This show is definitely striking the right balance that we wanted between, um, just I don't know. Like there's enough meat to chew on, but it's not overwrought
Right.
and it's not pretentious about itself in any way.
Which a lot of sci-fi can be, obviously.
Yeah,
And what's cool is I was worried when we watched the first episode, simply titled Premiere, that there were going to be a lot of names and a lot of races introduced very quickly in succession, and then that was going to
yeah.
be difficult to keep track of and difficult to sort of keep in your head. But the second episode, Exodus from Genesis, which is like technically, what did you say, the seventh episode, depending on.
The third episode.
There you go. Depending on how you watch them, is very much just like, all right, you got your basis. Let's just tell a story, which is exactly what
Yeah,
I'm looking for. And it didn't. I mean, it like there's like a villain of the week aspect to it, but it's handled with a lot of care.
yeah.
So, premise of the show. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna. We'll talk about Exodus from
Yes,
Genesis. I have
yes.
things to
Let's
say about it.
let's start from the beginning. We got Premiere and premise of the
Yeah.
show. We got our boy John Crichton, who is from A Year.
Earth. Oh, yeah.
Yes, he's
I
also
don't
from
know.
Earth. Yeah, I'm not I'm not exactly. I don't think they ever specify.
Let's say it's the far-flung year of 2008
I think I think it's supposed to be the near future because he's still.
of the late 90s.
Yes, yeah, of 1999 because he mentions in the second episode renting something about renting a movie. So
Animal House.
yes, ugh, barf. And so he's like, "Oh, Dad, I like have daddy issues, but I really just want to impress you, and so I'm gonna slingshot myself past the Earth's gravitational ring and do cool shit." And then his dad and his best friend DK Douglas Knox
Yeah.
are like, "All right, man, good luck." And then he does it, and he puts on his cool Rebel Alliance hat, and he gets. It looked so Rebel Alliance-y, like the shot of his ship. It was almost weird.
Yeah.
And he flings himself into a different, I don't know, he gets into like a weird wormhole, and then he's in like future aliens are normal in this corner of the universe world, and he's on a ship,
Yeah.
and he's in prison with Sexy McGee, whose name
Right.
is, you can do this,
His name is Aaron Sun.
Aaron's son, and she's cool, and she's what's called a peacekeeper. And the peacekeepers are this heavy mascara wearing race of humanoids.
So they're not a race.
Okay.
I don't like they. The race is called something else. They are like the soldiers of the race.
Right, I've been saying, you're right, that's a good point I was going to mention. They talk about peacekeepers, but it's something that starts with an S, right?
I think it starts with an A.
She does say it, though.
Yeah. When they're in the second episode, they're talking about it.
Right. And
Let me look it up.
yes, thank you. We don't learn much about them in the first episode, but we learn about her and how she is one of their soldiers and is super hot, and she's all like, "Oh, I don't like you, and I could get out of here if I want, but my people don't like me anymore because now they think I have contracted some horrible virus from being in contact with a human being."
Mm.
And so that is her excuse to be stuck on this ship with Crichton and the gang who runs the ship, which, first of all... Oh, go ahead.
You were right about it starting with an S. They're called Sebaceans.
There you go. You know what I kept thinking of was Archduke Sebastus.
Mm.
You know, from Angel Season 5.
Right.
The other show. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the ship that they're on is called, what is it called? It's called the Maya, the Manga, the Moon Mom.
The Moya.
The Moya. The ship is rad as hell. It's like this cool insect-looking ship. It looks like a weird pinto bean, and it has like a consciousness, and they ride it around in space, which is such a cool... I love the idea of a living ship. I think that's relatively uncharted territory for television.
Mm-hmm.
And manning the ship are Pilot, who is a very large, very complicated puppet who I love.
Hmm.
and shows that this show was created by, in part, the Henson Company. Um, and he pilots a ship, and his name is Pilot. And we don't really learn much about him except that he is really good at reacting to people talking, which I love.
Hmm.
And we also have, is it Zahn?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
she has like a bunch of names, but cool blue lady who is of a race that she's like exactly the kind of like sci-fi race that I like, which is just like they feel emotions through touch and they are very comfortable in their bodies and empathetic, and they're all about spirituality. And she has the ability to what do they call it, a spirit painting,
Yeah, yeah, a spirit painting.
where she can paint something based on what like someone's true essence is, which is pretty rad. I like that about them, and I want to see more of her race for sure.
Yeah.
We also got DK. Is it DK? Is it what the fuck that guy's name is? Drogo.
Dargo, I think.
Dargo. Good job. We're
Dargo.
doing good. We're episode 1 and 2, and we're already keeping these names in our heads.
So here's what I'm finding comparing our experiences with this show to our experience with Twin Peaks,
Right.
is that you're much better at remembering like the names of human beings, and I'm much better at remembering nonsensical apostrophe-ridden alien names.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah,
Because of both of our backgrounds in terms of what we like and how we think about things. But
sure.
I'm like, oh, that's the dark haired guy. That's Steve. That's Ben Horn.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, blue lady. That's Zahn. Oh, fucking guy with the coolest chin in the world. That's Dargo. Got it. Easy.
Right. Yeah.
And so I spent the whole first episode being like, oh, big chin guy or sexy blue lady or the other humanoid lady. Aaron's son. So the two of them are together. They might have a romantic thing. I don't know. I like him a
Who?
lot. Dargo and Zahn kind of had a thing in the first episode.
Oh, they had a cool yeah, just moment of interplay.
Right. I think it's gonna play out to be more of a like respect and friendship sort of thing.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who knows? And we also have Yoda from Star Wars is actually on this show, which is crazy. John, you can do it. What's his name?
Oh, you put me on the spot, and I'm forgetting that it's Rigel.
Good. Oh yeah, named after the star, probably.
Maybe he's Rigel the 16th.
Rigel the 16th of his name. He is
Yeah.
a puppet man who is very uppity and silly. I would say he's the Xander of the show. He's the comic relief.
Well, but he's not the core of the show.
Right.
Like,
He's not the like likable happy part. He's just like he's the comic relief is really just what it is.
Really, what's his fit? John Crichton is the Xander of the show.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But this is a show where he gets to be the hero.
Yeah, which is interesting, and I think that'll play out in a cool way. Because it's one of those things where, like, I think John Crichton's surprisingly good for a very generic-looking white protagonist dude, but
Yeah.
He's like my least interest. Is like the character I'm least interested in.
In what sense?
In terms of wanting to know about his life and wanting to see more of him.
I guess that's fair, but I think that he makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
When he's there.
Because he is the outsider perspective, and I think the show wouldn't function well without him.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like I get him already.
Right. I mean, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be your way into this universe.
He's your everyman. He's your viewer stand-in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's interesting, but we'll talk about how I kind of think he is elevated a little bit above your standard white guy protagonist. Rigel's cool, and then is there anybody else? I think that's the whole, like, major gang.
Yeah, I think that's you said Pilot already.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's a bad guy.
His name is it Kreis? Is it Kreis?
Kreis, I think, something like that.
Kreis is how it's spelled on the wiki, the Farscape Encyclopedia Project. Full name Bielar Kreis, and he's got a great goatee. I have a problem with this guy.
What's your problem? He has a British accent.
Yes. It also is his entire motivation that Crichton's ship crashed into his brother's and killed his brother.
Yeah.
That's his whole motivation.
Yeah.
He's very angry for what amounted to a complete accident.
I mean, yes. I think he also like that his motivation may morph a little bit as John Crichton becomes more of a thorn in his side. And I think he also might just be curious about him because we still don't know what people know about humans in this
That's true. They
universe.
do. It's almost like racism to humans in a way.
Right. So we don't know because he had that line in the first episode where he's like, "I'm going to cut you open and see what you're made of." So there might be some scientific interest in John Crichton.
Right. Can I pause this for a second and do a thing real quick?
Yes.
All right, cool. Pausing, being back in a second.
Do
Hey, hi, we're back.
Hey, we're back.
We were talking about Jesus Christ. I mean, Christ. Christ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. We're talking about the Lord Jesus Christ.
It's more of a joke than nothing.
Wow.
I thought it was a non sequitur because we've been gone for 5 years. That break that we just had.
Let's just say when I was doing the thing that I was doing, I did have the joke in my head of, what if we just pretended we were gone for like a long time? But now we don't have to pretend because it's been, 5 years. What was it, 5 years?
5 years. I feel like I haven't spoken to you in 5 years.
How are the kids?
They're good. They're about 4 years old.
Jesus.
Don't even know how you knew about them, really, but...
I saw in the paper.
Oh, you're right.
Local wild man gives birth to demon spawn.
Yeah, they're a couple of Hellraisers.
There you go. Thank you. Da-da-da-da-da-da. What else happens with Christ? He's got a sexy blonde assistant.
I mean, yeah, she's something. I just like their hair, their little weird ponytail thing.
It's immensely pulled back and then immensely ponytailed, yes.
Yeah.
It's a cool...
Also, of course, they're all British because they're a space military industrial complex.
Dude, I got mad when I first heard him talk. I was like, come on, every sci-fi show has to have British bad guys.
Yeah.
You can do anything, and you have to make everyone British. Or in this show's case...
But also all the good guys are British.
Yeah, or Australian.
Right.
I actually heard a little bit of Australian in Blue Lady's voice in the second episode.
Interesting.
So, who knows? Most important things that happen in the first episode. Well, we find out that Rigel can fart like helium.
Good.
And then we go, I forgot about that. I thought that was a dream I had. We had a whole scene where he just like farts helium and they're like, this is weird. That's like the first episode of this epic sci-fi masterpiece known as Farscape. Oh.
Fuck.
Oh. Alright, ending the recording, starting again. Hey, hi, we're talking about Farscape. It's a show about farting.
I love Farscape. Oh, wait.
Shit, start again. Hey, welcome to the Farscape. God damn it. I don't know, anything else cool happened in the first episode is weirdly like...
It's very typical.
Yes.
And in a good way. Like, it's very easy to understand what's going on. And it also doesn't... I guess something to say in its favor is that it doesn't ever feel all that expository.
Yeah, because it very quickly is like, here's what's going on, and we just need to figure it out. We don't need to, like, talk about who everyone is for an hour.
Right. But also because none of the characters like each other enough to explain anything to each other.
Exactly.
Like, they're too busy just fighting and yelling and running around.
Running around the coolest ship I've ever seen.
It's alright. It's kind of gross looking.
That's the idea. It's so gross looking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's also a cool thing is that it's a crew formed out of necessity and not out of a common goal.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're all here, and one of us has been abandoned from her group. We don't know the full story of the 2 aliens yet, or the 3 aliens, and they're just kind of on a ship hanging out. And it's very Star Wars.
Because they were all prisoners, these aliens. So they all did something that was worthy of being imprisoned.
Right. It's so...
And I mean, we could debate... Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
You're good.
We could... I'm sure there's an element of it where these peacekeepers just, like, indiscriminately imprison alien races because they seem like they're racists.
Space racists are always fun.
Yeah. But also... Khan, is that her name? The blue lady? That's the one I don't know. Zahn, you're right. She says, like, oh, I murdered people, basically.
I've seen some shit. Or I've done some shit, rather.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
That's very Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, they do feel like a very Guardians crew. Well, because in Guardians of the Galaxy, they were imprisoned, and then they busted out.
They were imprisoned, they all had done bad things. There was a scene where they did romantic things on a balcony. Like, the similarities are weird.
Yeah.
But I think that this crew is much...
And when we were watching, you also pointed to some Futurama parallels going on here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think that's just because the concept of average Joe Earthling goes into the future and makes space friends and goes on space adventures is like as old as time itself.
Right, and it lends itself to very specific um, team stereotypes.
Exactly, the strong woman, the weird alien, the badass alien. You know, you have your Bender in this show. You have your Zoidberg. Like totally, yeah. I think you can do that with so many different shows.
Yeah.
But what I think this show has in its favor in terms of being unique is the Henson Company connection, because it feels like I really am a big fan of dirty sci-fi.
Name another dirty sci-fi.
So like I love Episode 4 of Star Wars. You know, Star Wars. I love Blade Runner, and Aliens is one of my favorite sci-fi films. Like these are films that take place on planets and ships that are seemingly constructed from mysterious materials and just cobbled together. Like there are a lot of shots, especially in the pilot of Farscape, that are just the spaceship, and it doesn't look like a ship. It looks like a bean or like a comet or something.
Yeah.
And it looks very unnatural, and I love that. And it has its own thing going on.
Yeah.
Which is good. Not much happens in the first episode other than they escape the bats, and they're like, well, we're on a fun adventure now. Yay.
Yeah. Are you hitting your mute button?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah. It's unsettling for me because the noise keeps cutting in and out. I don't know where I am or who I am, you know?
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite character is Aaron's son.
Why? Because she's pretty.
Yeah. No, also she's the one that's going to have an arc.
For sure. I like that she's clearly like got the most going on backstory-wise.
And also she's like, I like the aliens that are going on here, but I'm most interested in the Sebaceans, like trying to figure out what their deal is.
Oh, especially after the second episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot going on. Like, I always find it interesting in shows like this how long it takes for the protagonist to adjust. And I think one of my least favorite things about the first episode is that there are a lot of scenes of him going like, you know, I don't know where are you? Why are we here? What am I doing? This isn't America. This isn't Earth. And then by the second episode, which I guess partly is due to the fact that
it's the third,
is like, all right, well, we're in it now. And this is still weird to me, but I kind of can rationalize it.
Yeah.
And he says, right, like, I kind of expected something like this to happen when I did my jump. Like, something weird was going to happen. So that's why that's like part of why I think that Crichton is better than your average protagonist. But also, like, he isn't, I don't want to say he isn't cocky, but he isn't arrogant.
Right. He's not a douchebag.
Exactly, and it's so easy to make a character like that just immediately a douchebag.
Because he's a scientist, is the thing.
It's not like...
He doesn't seem like a scientist, but the way he's written is he tries to approach things and find a solution to problems.
Right, and usually that is through talking and not punching people, at least so far. Right. That's what I love about the second episode.
Yeah, and also he's clearly very honorable, which we see in the first episode where he is looking out when they are in handcuffs and then they get away from those guards, and he says to Dargo that he won't leave unless Aaron goes with them.
Oh, right. He's just immediately has this honor code. He's like, yep, this is...
Right. And he also seems pretty curious about things, which is interesting. Like, he knows he's in a crazy place, but he's not, like, having panic attacks about it because he kind of wants to know more. And stuff is weird, and he'll resist it at first, but then he'll say, well, you know, when in Rome.
Which is the best way to handle that sort of archetype. I
will say there are times when I'm a little... I don't think that Ben Rowden is, like, the best actor I've ever seen. But he seems like a nice guy, which I think helps.
Right.
Like, he does seem like kind of a bland white guy, but, like, a nice... It's not like they got him at the factory where they make all the, you know, Calvin Klein models or whatever. He's not a handsome sci-fi hero. He's like an approachable sci-fi hero.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because Well, one of the things I also like about him in the way that he handles, I didn't expect us to get this much out of the main character's discussion after 2 episodes, but this is great. He and like the whole crew very quickly go from like not necessarily hating each other, but like not being sure of each other to
Mm-hmm.
like what I think there's a line in the second episode where they say like, all right, we're on the ship together. We have an alliance and we have to be. Oh, this was at the end of the first one. Yeah. And we have to be something. And then I think it's uh, I really need to learn names. Beard guy.
Dargo.
Dargo's like, oh, like a family, and he's like, yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they instead of like it's going to be an uneasy alliance for the first like half a season, it's just like very quickly they're like, all right, let's just be friends and not be okay with each other. Like let's actually make an effort to be decent to each other, because God, we know that this world hates us and we need to have someone to work with. Because, and I don't want to keep bringing the comparison up throughout the whole show, but like Guardians of the Galaxy does that, where it's like, what's his face? Fucking main guy is very much Star-Lord is like, let's all be buddies, let's all like hang out, and then they are by the end of the episode, by the end of the movie rather.
Uh-huh.
I like things I like, small things. Crichton's puzzle ring.
Uh-huh.
It's really cool. I just want to say that because there's a scene in the second episode where, and it shows the like style of humor that this show employs, which is that there are a bunch of guards coming for them.
It's the first episode.
See, that's the thing, is that we watched the second half of the first episode tonight, so I'm getting the second half of the first episode mixed with the second episode.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives it the guy the ring, and the guy's like, "What's this?" And then he's like, "Put it back together." And they are just fighting over it, and then he has a chance to pull out their very cool laser. Very just like, doesn't look like a gun, doesn't seem like something that is meant to be held laser that shoots yellow beams of light. It's a pulse pistol, by the way, fun fact. Oh, there are some good prop pictures of it online if you're interested. I like little things like that. I like Pilot's whole setup. I think my favorite visual from both of these episodes is actually the thingy from the trade planet on the first episode. You know how they go to a trade planet, which is very standard fare for this type of show, and they go to this like big merchant thing, and it's called the Proprietor. There you go. I have a name, and it's the like big. It's like surrounded by beads, and it comes out of the door, and it's like this giant green hulking monster with like 7,000 teeth. I'll send you it in case you don't remember what it is. There's also a fun bit of trivia about that prop, because it's very clearly a prop. It like barely moves and it just kind of barks. But apparently the people who made it built it at the wrong scale, so it didn't fit in the room, and it took them 3 hours to squish it into the actual place, which is cool. There are just so many like, I don't know, before we watched the show, all I knew about it was like, oh, it's a decent sci-fi show that's kind of weird and cheesy, and there's a lot of puppets. And like there are a lot of puppets, and that's all accurate, but they never, like, the only one that actually feels like a puppet to me is Rigel.
Right.
Because Pilot is also, technically a puppet, but Pilot feels like an installation. Like he is in the heart and soul of that corner of the ship. And when in the second episode, when Aaron gets to go up there and say hi to him, that like room where it's like 4 pillars that connect onto a center, which is him, and that's just where he hangs out, is so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool room.
Because it gives this impression that he just is always by himself, always looking forward, always piloting. Because that's what he does. That's pilot. And I hope he gets a chance to do something cool, or save the ship some more. But I guess we can just kind of slide into the second episode, because there isn't that much else to talk about with the first one.
Yeah.
The second episode that we watched was Exodus from Genesis, which is a bottle episode.
Right.
The one sentence summary on the wiki: Aaron's sun is getting hot. John Crichton is on a steep learning curve. Peacekeeper starts seeing double or triple. So it kind of gets the point across, but really in a weird way.
Yeah.
Cool aliens come onto the ship, onto the Ming Mong, whatever the hell it's called. The Moya, thank you, I'm learning. And
the Ming Mong.
The Ming Mong. And Crichton is like, oh no, we need to get rid of them, and he crushes one of them and kills them, and then they infest the ship, and then we realize that they can turn into people on the ship, like physically, but they can't communicate like them. So they do this thing where they put like orange paint on their hands, and then that doesn't work because once the aliens see it, they can copy it. And you're like, okay, so this is like a pretty standard episode. But then it like puts a really interesting kink in it, which is that the peacekeepers come onto the ship, because I guess they're looking for Crichton and also Aaron, and
Yeah.
they come on, and Crichton comes up with this really brilliant plan to basically help out the bugs so that they can multiply fast enough and
Hmm.
defeat or basically push out the peacekeepers from the ship so that they can be saved. And it's a really good like way to handle that problem, because this episode could have very quickly just turned into we turned both sides against each other and they both died. Yay, we win. And I think that that kind of plot would have very easily taken away from our liking of John Crichton. That would have immediately turned him into like, oh, he's clever, but he's got like a mean streak to him. Like he could totally screw some people over if he really wanted to.
Yeah.
But he chooses not to. And
Right.
it's a good, I liked it a lot. It's a really good bottle episode.
Yeah. I
Because,
think so.
yeah, it plays with that sort of concept in an interesting way. It gives a lot of opportunity for the characters to develop, and I don't know. We get a ton of good looks at the ship, which are great. Just lots of good, weird corridors and whatnot. And I guess, yeah, this is the only episode directed by Brian Henson, which is fun.
Yeah.
He will go on to executive produce episodes and also, I think, be in an episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, he totally is going to be on an episode. That's great.
That's funny.
It's in season 4, though, so don't wait for it. Yeah, that's basically like the general plot. And then also we find out that the sebaceous people, Sebascus, are cold-blooded, and so if they heat up a lot, they like their skin dissolves and they go nuts, and they do this really cool thing where they turn into living death, which is like, I guess, husk zombies. And you mentioned this during the episode, but it's like they're so gonna bring that back.
Bring what back?
The living dead thing.
Oh, yeah.
They have to. That's yeah, like,
yeah.
it's Chekhov's gun. You know, they mention it, and then they do a lot of like, hey, Dargo, have you seen one of these? And he's like, yeah, shit sucks. And then they just kind of don't, like, it doesn't happen to her, but you know it's gonna happen to someone.
I mean, you could say that it doesn't have to come back necessarily because it was one of the engines of conflict in this episode.
Right. It's a time bomb, basically.
Right. But it is the fact that the Sebaceans are cold-blooded is a key part of their physiology. So at least the idea that they have weird differences from humans is probably going to come back.
Yeah, because they have to have physiological differences like that, since they are all clearly just played by humans with cool eyebrow makeup. So it's like if they were just humans but called something else, then that wouldn't be a good sci-fi race. Because then why bother naming them something different if they're just the same, but they're all British or something.
Yeah.
So Craig makes the decision to let the bug people heat up the ship enough to force out the peacekeepers and then almost kill Aaron in the second. That was weird to me. I kept mentioning it.
Yeah.
And again, it's probably just due to like, it's kind of the third episode, but like they've just now started to establish a relationship, and he's already like, yeah, I'd get rid of her.
Well, but I don't think that it was that flippant on his part. Like, he was trying to diplomatically save the situation and respect. The thing of it is, like, you're kind of thinking about it in a way that the show's trying to get you to not think about it, which is that, it's sort of human-centric, I guess. Like, John Crichton's important, and the other members of the crew are important. But he's looking at it in the sense of, like, those bug things, there are like bajillions of them, and he's trying to save them and save the peacekeepers that came on board and save the crew.
Ideally, no one has to die.
Right. And so he's making the best gamble that he can make, trusting in the fact that Aaron's son is strong and hoping that she can last longer than these other dudes, these other Sebaceans.
Which she does, and she does it by getting sexy. And it's cool, too, because... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think it also plays into... He's trying to live up to what Zahn said, like, partway through the episode, where in order to gain the trust of Aaron and Dargo, he has to make bold decisions.
Right. I liked that conversation a lot, too.
Yeah.
Basically, both major conversations between Zahn and John Crichton were fantastic in this episode.
Yeah. Zahn is just a good character to make that sort of thing happen. Like every conversation she's in is really interesting.
Absolutely. Because she's never just like, hey guys, what's up? She's like, I got some knowledge to drop on you.
Yeah, because she's a priest, right?
Right.
Lest we forget that.
Yeah, she's very spiritual, and she has a prayer in the first episode that I guess is going to come back. It's just like a recurring thing she does.
Yeah.
That specific prayer. So that is a good point, though, about how he has to choose to make decisions like that, and that's how he gains their trust. And it's not just like the typical hero has to make a big decision to save the world. It's like hero has to make a good decision to keep his like tentative friends.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool like small scale version of the typical arc for this kind of character. And what's also interesting, and we haven't talked about him a ton, but Dargo is fantastic, and he's played by someone. And what I like about him is that he isn't like he starts out and he's very much just the like the brute and the let's kill everyone, but he very clearly is just the renegade. The like it's so much easier if we just fight. It's so much more efficient. We could have been done with this whole episode in 5 minutes if we killed all of the bugs and killed all of the peacekeepers, but that's not going to work. And so there's already a conflict there between him and John, which I think is going to be interesting. I'm really interested in seeing where that guy goes for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's your spirit painting. You got Rigel just kind of hanging out in like the alien bug like spawning chamber, and just like taking notes on like, oh, shit's still fucked. Good to know. Things are still fucked. Good to know. Right. And yeah, he doesn't really have much to do other than just kind of make jokes, if I remember correctly, and get a painting done of him that has like a weird long red eyebrow because he messed up. So that was fun. And then his spirit painting is like perfect, except it looks like the first of his name, I guess. Other things that happen include
I think that was everything. Well, then we get John talks to Aaron at the end.
Well, right before that, we get John and Zahn. Ha! John Zahn.
Oh, yeah. Did we not talk about that?
We mentioned it. I don't really know if we went into it. It's a really good, like, summation of what the episode is about, where he's like, there are people that we don't like in the world, and there are, like, people that we consider, expendable or less than us. And in a lot, like, humans have that. We have that in various forms. And in Alien World, we also have that, but in Zahn's mind, it's all about, what are her two words? Patience and something?
Time
and patience, which really sums up her whole mantra, I think, in a nice way.
Yeah.
So that moment is really personal and good because I feel like it summarizes the theme of the episode of acceptance and equality without being ham-fisted. And then it segues into a really gorgeous scene on a balcony on this ship where John meets up with Aaron's son, and she's squatting, and I made a joke that she was taking a poopy, and she's all like, well, what did she say?
They sort of debrief the experience that happened, and then she says some offhanded comment about I used to think that lesser beings were just meant to be squashed or something like that.
He's like, yeah, wait a minute.
Which is really cool that they presented it that way, because the viewers have just watched a scene where John had the exact same, ostensibly the same revelation, and we're kind of like, okay, yeah, like that's the theme of the episode, we get it. And then you realize right when he does, like, oh, she's making a coy comment about him and about how she's sort of coming around on him a little bit. And then she asks him, did we talk about the fact that she made him promise to kill her?
I don't think we mentioned it, but that's kind of the core of the conflict for him in this episode.
Yeah.
Is that she's like, hey, if this heat thing keeps up and I can't resist it, I'm going to turn into a crazy living dead thing. You need to promise that you'll kill me if that happens, or before that happens. And he's like, I'm not going to say yes. And then she at the end is like, would you have done it? And then I forget what he says.
He doesn't say anything.
Right. Which is actually really cool.
Yeah.
Because it leaves a very important aspect of their relationship completely open still.
Right. And that's something that you can use to argue in the favor of the living death thing coming back.
Right, because if he hasn't answered it yet, he has to be tested again.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah, and I still think they will.
So yeah, they say that, and then he sort of brushes it off, and they just share a moment looking at the bug dust going back into space.
What a gorgeous effect.
Yeah.
It's cool that this show is in this weird era of 1999 and 2000 technically, where like yeah, the puppet work is great, and like yeah, some of the CG is like hot toasty garbage, but
Yeah.
you can't deny that they have a good vision for this show.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And I've talked a lot about the ship, but also just like the space around the ship, and the bug dust, and the way that the Bug Queen possesses Zahn to talk to them, and the way that it
Hmm.
changes her voice and stuff. Like there are just these little details that suggest a world so much bigger than this ship, which is like my favorite type of bottle episode is the one that hints at a bigger world and doesn't necessarily need to show it.
Yeah.
Um, and there is some, yeah, like there's some good and bad CG. Fucking Rigel walking was one of the
Yeah.
worst things I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And it's a very brief shot, but I remember, like, you were like half a second ahead of me in this episode when we were live watching, and you go like, oh, whoa. And I was like, wait, what? Ah. And then by the time I finished it was gone. But
Yeah.
yeah, apparently that was just really expensive and they shouldn't have done that. And I agree, because
Yeah. It was garbage.
it's yucky. There are elements of this show that look like an N64 game, but I just don't like. I honestly expected it to look worse,
Right. Me too.
and I think it's set design and it's puppet design and it's like clever CG that really propels it from looking stupid.
Hmm.
So good on the Henson Company for that, I guess. And golly, I just love every character on the show. I feel like I could, even in these 2 episodes, I could talk so much more about all of them,
Yeah.
but I can't because there's limited time in our lifetimes.
Hmm. Two things that we haven't said yet that I want to just say as virtues of this show. One is something that it does really well that another show that we have watched didn't do so well, which is that it has rules and it sticks to them, and it creates conflict out of its rules. Like this whole second episode was an exercise in
Following your own
uh,
rules.
right, but like not just that, but establishing like three competing sets of rules and then looking at how they interact with one another, because it sets up how these bugs work and how they can like replicate people and possess people or whatever. It sets up how sebaceans work with regards to heat. It sets up certain rules of like what people understand about the environment that they're in. Like it keeps in that final sequence, especially when the peacekeepers get on the ship and they're looking for Crichton and Aaron, and they find a replicant of her in the sick bay, and they're like, "Oh, she's dead," and then they kill what they think is Crichton, but it's a replicant of him. I don't know. Like that whole sequence does a really good job of making sure that it always knows who knows what,
Yes.
and using that as a tool to create dramatic irony and tension on a number of different levels.
And yeah, for such two relatively simple episodes, I feel like that's going to be the thing that keeps us going. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to see more rules, and I want to see how they interplay, and I want to. It's not just character
Yeah.
development; it's also like the universe is really interesting.
Yeah. And then the other thing that is in its favor is something that we've kind of said already, but just that a lot of shows, and a lot of sci-fi shows especially, love to use those last 5 minutes to have the characters kind of talk about what happened. And a lot of the times it's kind of like, okay, enough, we get it. Like, this is stupid. But in this show, I feel like that's going to become the best part almost.
When they're like, oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, but the way that they talk about it is going to be really, really interesting. Partly because in other shows it feels a little dishonest when characters talk at the end and they're like, oh man, I guess the lesson of that was this. And it's like, you didn't need to hand it to me like that. But in this show, these characters are legitimately trying to learn more about each other. And John Crichton especially is trying to learn more about his environment. And so his conversation with Zahn at the end of the second episode, where he's like, okay, so this is your life philosophy. How does it apply to this situation or that situation? Is him legitimately trying to explore alternative ways of thinking in a way that feels organic and feels honest
Yeah.
to the show and to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I didn't expect to have this much respect for this show so soon.
Exactly. For a bottle episode and a pilot,
Right.
it is putting its best foot forward and
Yeah, for sure.
really hopefully sticking to it.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I agree with you 100%. I don't really have anything to add. I just it's one of the first shows that we've watched that I feel like I know so little about.
Hmm.
So it's not only like I don't know who stays alive and who has sex with who, but like I don't know where the bad episodes are. Like I
Yeah.
in general have heard that it's one of the it just like gets better over time. Like season one's a little awkward, but hey, we loved the first two episodes, so
Yeah. So we're good, I think.
it'll probably just get better.
Yeah, I think the refreshing thing for me is I don't really know what could happen next.
That's the beauty of a good sci-fi show.
Yeah. Like I know that they're on the run and that they could fight peacekeepers and stuff, but I don't know what the end game of this show is, except that John Crichton wants to get back to Earth, I guess. But does he even want to do
Well,
that?
yeah,
I
I
don't
have a
know.
feeling it's gonna do the like, oh, maybe it's not that bad here. Maybe I'll just hang out.
Right.
But that would also require us to know more about what his situation was like on Earth,
Hmm.
because we've been talking about other shows that are about people in unique environments
Hmm.
that are being taken out of their home and being put somewhere else. Last Man on Earth, The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and now Farscape all have this sort of person displaced
Yeah.
concept, and how each of them depicts the person wanting to or not wanting to go back is a really cool little interplay going on.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I'm itchy. That's Exodus from Genesis, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy that we're watching this show, really, and this will be a good year. It still is weird to say.
Yeah. It's gonna pop off, I think.
For sure. We are gonna watch 2 episodes next week. Is that good?
Yes, that's good.
And we're gonna be following the Netflix UK airing, or US Netflix, but it's following the UK broadcast of the show. I guess.
I believe so.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next episode we're gonna be watching. Do you want to do summary talks or should I do summary talks?
We can each do one.
Okay. So the first one we're gonna watch is called Back and Back and Back to the Future, which God, this show has good episode names. And the premise is, or the Netflix summary is, oh God. Oh boy. Have you seen it already?
I think I read the first sentence just when you did.
A sensual female alien seduces Dargo and Crichton to obtain a weapon of mass destruction. Crichton experiences mental flashes of the future.
That sounds cool.
Mwah! That sounds fun as fuck. What about the second
And
one?
then the next one is called Throne for a Loss. Rigel takes a crystal essential to Moya's survival for trade with the Tavlex, battle-scarred renegades whose real business is kidnapping.
So classical.
Yeah.
I don't want to look too far ahead and read more of these, but I feel like I could I could visualize where a lot of these episodes are going based on their. Because you mentioned during the second one that there's like visual elements of Power Rangers in this show, in terms of the way that it
Yeah.
like just like the weapon design and like the outfits and everything.
And Dargo especially looks like a Power Rangers villain to me.
Yes, it's his sword.
I think it's the way that yeah, his sword and the way that he talks.
Yeah. He has that that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And the ship kind of looks like one of those, like, you know how in Power Rangers all the villains are on a spaceship and they're like, we're gonna send the next one down to the Power Rangers. Moya kind of looks like that ship.
Ah, I love this Shiardi. She? Have we decided? Have we decided if the ship is a female or male? Does it have to be?
It's referred to as a female, but I think that's because it's how ships are referred to.
You're right.
I'm guessing it's not a gendered organism.
That's a good point. I guess I just associate it because Moya sounds like a feminine name.
Right.
But yeah, I did notice that as well. And like Power Rangers had lots of episodes that were just like, oh, and they go to the weird planet. Or at least the good Power Rangers. They're like, oh, everyone's made of candy now. Those are the bad Power Rangers. Quote bad, not actually bad. Nothing about Power Rangers is bad. John, I'm going to talk to you about Farscape next week.
Cool.
And that was the very first inaugural episode of ScapeChatz.